It was May of 1940. The situation was bleak. The German blitzkrieg had rolled across Europe. Most of Europe had fallen. The British expeditionary forces were caught between a rock and a hard place. The German advance on the one side and the English Channel on the other side. The situation looked hopeless. And then something truly remarkable happened. In fact, you might even call it a miracle. The King of Britain, King George VI, ordered a national day of prayer on May 26th. And the people prayed. The British were about to attempt a very daring 10-day rescue of their troops that were caught. The first part of the plan was that they would release the water in the dikes, that they would open up the dikes and allow the water to come rushing in. And the hope was that the water rushing in from the ocean would slow down the German advance, that the tanks and everything that the Germans were advancing with would get bogged down in the water. And what should happen after they released the dikes, after they opened up the dikes? The wind started to blow and blew water in from the ocean, creating just that much more water inland, slowing down the German advance that much more. But then, the fear was that if the winds continued to blow like that, the boats crossing the English Channel would never make it. And so the prayers went up. And the wind stopped. The winds stopped. And the boats were able to cross. The winds blew when they needed to blow. The winds stopped when they needed them to stop. The winds blew where they needed them to blow and didn't blow where they didn't need them. And the boats came across. The soldiers were able to get into the boats. And thousands upon thousands of soldiers were able to load up into boats and head back to England. Well, let's not forget the fog. Just as the boats arrived and the soldiers were loading into the boats, the fog rolled in, which shielded the soldiers from the German eyes, so they couldn't see what was happening on the beaches. And the story isn't finished yet. They headed out in these boats. They headed out in these boats across the English Channel, which was best described as calm like a pond. A glassy sea. The English Channel in late May is never a glassy sea. It's never calm as a pond. It's typically roiled by storms, and there's all sorts of things, heavy waves and heavy winds. Late May is not the time to be doing this. But somehow, some way, those soldiers got into boats and headed out onto a glassy sea and were able to make it home. They were saved. How could this be? How could this happen? How is this possible? The Lord is my shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Now, when we hear those words, we probably don't hear them in the way that King David meant them or the psalmist meant them when he wrote them all those years ago. Because in David's day, in the psalmist's day, the Lord is my shepherd. The king was known as the shepherd of the people. So people in David's day, people in the psalmist's day would have heard the words, the Lord is my shepherd, the Lord is my king. To him I pledge my loyalty. I pledge my allegiance to the King, the Lord of Lords, the King of Kings. This is how the psalmist probably meant the words. I shall not want. Unlike an earthly king, Unlike an earthly king that sometimes forgets about his people, God never will. God will always be there for his people. God will never forget about his people. And that is why we shall never want. In fact, the New Interpreter's Bible Commentary says a better translation would be to put it this way: the Lord is my shepherd, I shall lack for nothing. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall lack for nothing. Because the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, is always there and always willing to provide for me, even life itself. And this helps us make sense of the next few verses. The next few verses talking about green pastures. Well, we're here in Kansas, and we know about livestock and sheep. Green pastures would be food for the sheep. We understand that fairly well. But God provides that. God provides the green pastures for the sheep. In a desert society, in a desert environment, green pastures were hard to come by. We miss that sometimes in our translations or in our readings. But God provides those green pastures for his sheep, for his people. But what about the still waters part? Now, I grew up on a farm. I grew up out in the countryside in southwest Nebraska, but we never raised sheep. I didn't know too much about sheep, but people who do raise sheep have told me, they've told me that sheep will not drink from a running brook or from a running river. It scares them. And so they will refuse to drink if the water is turbulent or running. A sheep needs still waters in order to drink. So what does God do? God provides the still waters. God provides the still waters for his sheep. God provides all that is necessary for life. Restores my soul. Restores my life. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. The psalmist does not say, I see no evil, I hear no evil. That's not what the psalmist says at all. The psalmist says there is evil in this world, there is darkness in this world. I have to walk right through it. I'm walking right through the darkest valleys. And maybe that's how you feel right now. But the psalmist says, even though there is evil in this world, even though there is darkness, and you may be walking through the darkest valley, you don't need to be afraid. You need not fear. For God is with you. God is with you always in every step of the way. You don't need to worry. My rod and my staff, they comfort me. Again, we think about God as the shepherd with the shepherd's crook and keeping the sheep on the right path and keeping them out of trouble, and maybe using the staff to fend away from wolves or bears or whatever animals might be attacked. And that image is great. But there's another image in there as well. Again, according to the commentaries, the Hebrew word that was used for rod and staff is the same word that they used for a king's scepter. So not only in this notion of thy rod and thy staff, they protect me, they comfort me, not only is there an image of a shepherd, there's also an image of God as king. The king is looking out for you. The King of Kings, the Lord of Lords is there and will protect you always. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. My cup runneth over. The image shifts. We leave the pastoral scene, we leave the countryside with the shepherds and the sheep, and we go to a king's palace. We go to where the king has prepared an amazing banquet with all the food and all the drink for everyone. Even those people that maybe I didn't like so much. God is there, and God has provided for all of us. Each and every one of us, God has provided for. God has excluded no one. All are welcome at the banquet table. Come. And surely goodness and mercy shall follow you all the days of your life. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This last line, given a situation, I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever, seems a bit ironic today. But I ask you to think about this. A few years ago, if the virus had come, we didn't have the online technology to come all together and meet in the Lord's house online. But God has provided us now with the technology to keep us together. God has provided this ability for us. We need to use it. We need to use it and to come together in this way. God has provided a new method, a new way. And we need to take advantage of it so that we still can, we will continue to stay in the house of the Lord. Each and every Sunday. I admit that this week I have struggled. These are difficult times for all of us. And I have struggled during this week to find ways to reach out to people. I have struggled to find ways to give hope to people and to keep us all connected. When I saw the scripture passage was the 23rd Psalm, I nearly pulled my hair out. Just what we need to do. God has given the 23rd Psalm, which is a psalm that we always read at funeral time. Just what we need to do is remind them of funerals and of death. Like, God, what are we thinking here? But as I read the words, as I reread the words of the 23rd Psalm, as I heard them and tried to really hear the words, and as I read the commentaries and studied what the words meant, the 23rd Psalm is not a psalm of death and dying. The 23rd Psalm is a psalm of life and of how we are to live our lives, even in difficult times, perhaps especially in difficult times. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The Lord is my king. To him I pledge my loyalty and my allegiance forever, and I know he will never let me down. This is how we are to live our lives, each and every day. And who are we to say that we are Christians if we forget that when the times get tough? These are the times when we can show people what it truly means to believe in God. To really mean it when we say the Lord is my shepherd. Those soldiers, those British soldiers trapped between the German army on the one side and the English Channel on the other. Nowhere to go. It seemed hopeless. The situation was extremely dire. And yet God found a way. God provided green pastures. God provided still waters. Literally, provided still waters. God will and does find a way. And God will be there for you in this time of need, just as he was there for those soldiers in 1940. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Don't be afraid. The Lord will provide. The Lord is there. The Lord prepares a table before you in the presence of your enemies. The Lord has prepared a banquet, and there is enough. There is enough food for everyone. There is enough drink for everyone. That hasn't changed. What we need to do is we need to honor that. We need to respect that, to understand that God has provided for us. Reach out. Reach out to your neighbor, to the person who lives next door. Give a call to that elderly person that you haven't called for a few months or maybe a few years, or maybe you've never called. Reach out and see what the needs are. See how you can provide them. Provide for them. Love one another. Do so safely. Stay at home as best you can. Stay at home, stay safe. But let's reach out and be a neighbor to our neighbors. Let's love one another as Jesus commanded us to love. Let us be the church. Let us be the church that Jesus commanded us and told us to be and taught us how to be. We shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The Lord is our shepherd. The Lord is our shepherd. We shall lack for nothing. We shall lack for nothing. Love one another. Stay home. Be safe. Care for one another. In Jesus' name, amen.